What's up, YouTube? Robbie Vapes back again, and today we are doing a review on the Merlin by Augvape, so stay tuned. That is right, YouTube. Today we are taking a look at the Augvape Merlin RTA. Now, before we get to the pros and cons or anything like that, I have to address the big elephant in the room. Yes, I shaved. Mistakes were made, regrets were made. I don't know why I did it. I just felt like doing something different, and it turned out horribly, and there was no turning back when I started with the razor. So this is the end result. It looks terrible. I'm sorry, guys. But let's move past that for the rest of this review, and let's just focus on the Augvape Merlin from here on out, all right? Hang with me, guys. Hang with me. It's still Robbie Vapes here, all right? I even have the shirt to prove it, but just be aware that, mistakes were made, and I don't want to talk about it too much, all right? What I do want to talk about, though, is the Merlin RTA by Augvape, and I want to go over the pros and cons first. We're going to start with the cons, as we usually do, and there are some cons with this. Now, I will say this, please watch this review according to your vaping style and what your preferences are. They may be different from mine, so whatever I say as far as my opinion goes, just take it with a grain of salt and try and look past it for your own opinions so you guys can decide whether or not this device is right for you. Now, with that being said, I have a bunch of cons, all right? And I know I keep rambling here before we get to it, but I have one thing to say. I kind of wish I reviewed the Boreas before I reviewed this guy, because I love Augvape, okay? I've been a big fan of Augvape since the Druid, and I've loved their stuff ever since. The Illyria was great. The Boreas was probably my favorite RTA for the longest time. It still is in my top 3, by the way. This guy, not so much for me. But that's just my vaping style, okay? So let's go into the cons, and I'll try and let you guys understand why it's not the best for me. First of all, you have this beautiful deck. It's a pretty big deck, really nice to build on. The problem is the placement is pretty much made for a single coil build. It does have 4 post holes, though, which is kind of confusing because it feels like it was built for single coil builders, which, by the way, there's probably a bunch of single coil builders out there who are super excited, to look forward to this device, and they finally found the single coil build RTA that they've been looking for. And again, 4 post holes. It's kind of like they were a little bit confused. Should we do a single coil? Should we do a dual coil? Let's maybe do it both, but orient it in a way so it's primarily used for single coil builds. And it just feels a little bit mixed up for me. Machining on this was excellent. Don't get me wrong, the quality on this is great. It's a great build quality. It's got a lot of really good features to it, but we'll get to all that in the pros. In the meantime, the biggest con I can say is just it feels mixed up a little bit, okay? It really does. Now, on top of that, I mentioned there's 4 post holes, which I honestly would have preferred to see 2. This is set up perfectly for a single coil builder, and it's a little bit of a letdown that they still included the 4 post holes as opposed to just 2. And what's even more of a letdown, in the second con I have to mention, is the fact that the post holes are pretty small. So rather than put a single coil, really nice build, really complex build in there, you really can't, because the post holes are just too small to support anything past even a Clapton might be pushing it, depending on the size of it and depending on what wire you're using to build a Clapton. It's really, really tight in there. I really would have wished would have opened up those post holes and just, gone with it. Don't be afraid to go with a single coil RTA, because there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is it doesn't feel like a single coil RTA, but it doesn't feel like a dual coil RTA either. It's just in between right now. Now, apart from that, there's a whole bunch of pros I want to mention. Those are pretty much the biggest things, is the build deck itself and just how it's set up and the post holes and things like that. Those are my only cons with it, but they're pretty big cons in my mind. Now, going on to the pros, there's a bunch of pros here. First of all, you have a 510 drip tip. Now, most of my drip tips fit in there. There is a few that don't because they're a little bit too long. So I feel like it's a little bit shallow on there. But apart from that, most of them do fit. The second pro I want to mention is the juice flow control valve. It does allow you to adjust your juice flow. Great. Love it. Third thing I'm going to say as a pro, some of you guys may think it's a con, but I actually like this. It has a tighter airflow. So you have that really tight airflow, which brings in a lot more flavor. The only downside to that I will say is that you're not going to be able to cool off hotter builds, because you need more airflow to cool them off, and unfortunately it just doesn't deliver on that. Now again, that's depending on your preference. I like a hotter vape, so I'm okay with it. You may not be, and that's why I kept saying, in the beginning of this review, make sure you come into this based on what your preferences are and not what mine are. If you're okay building, a 6 or 7 wrap, 24 gauge Canthal, simple build, you're going to like this one, especially for like single coils. If you're not okay with that and you want to do some complex builds, it's going to be a little bit more tricky. And again, if it's too hot and you don't like a hot vape, that could be an issue if you're trying to build a little bit higher than what you should be kind of thing, or if you're trying to build for a hotter vape. So just keep that in mind, guys. That's one of the things I want to mention is just it again, it feels mixed up, and that's the best way to put it. And I'm not saying that is necessarily 100% bad. I'm just saying that it feels like it's in between right now what it should be. So again, moving on to more pros, the finish on this, the quality on this, the machining on this was excellent. There wasn't a speck of machining grease on this when I got it. It was very well cleaned out, and I have to give Augvape huge kudos for that because it's a very clean looking and clean feeling RTA. Everything else about this, I mean, the look of it as well, it looks really nice. The packaging, the things it comes with, you get a spare glass tank, which is excellent. You get a whole bunch of spare O-rings, spare screws, all that good stuff. And I just feel like the only lacking part is that build deck. So with that being said, let's get down and dirty with the Merlin RTA. I don't know why I said it that way. Anyways, let's just get down and dirty with the Merlin RTA, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. All right, YouTube, we're down and dirty with the Merlin RTA by Augvape. Here we go up close. Let's take a closer look at this thing and see what you get in the packaging. First thing we see when we take the lid off is the tank itself. We also have the spare glass right here, along with some spare O-rings and some spare grub nuts. You also get an Allen key right in here, which I put off to the side, so it's not in there right now. But rest assured, you do get an Allen key. Let's take the tank out here really quick. If I can get it out. There we go. All right, take the tank out, put that off to the side just for a moment here. And let's check out underneath here what else you get. You'll see here you get a pre-made coil. This is actually a notch coil, as you guys can see there. Hopefully you guys can see that. Kind of a different coil style. I didn't use mine, to be honest. I just put my own in there, but I would like to try it out a little bit. I've heard some mixed things, but the biggest thing I have with this notch coil is how fragile it is. I did go to put it in, and it just started bending a little bit and just didn't feel right, and that's why I didn't go with it, and that's why I'm not using it for this review. But I do find it's a little bit fragile, so that's the only downside to that notch coil here. And again, just a little bit of close up there. Just kind of see how it is and how it's made. It's almost like soldered together, so it's really weird how they made it, but there it is right there, up close. So you do get one of those with it. You also have your instruction manual below. That's just this little thing right here. If I can get it out, it's sticking. There we go. There's the instruction manual here. Again, I'm not going to go through this too much, but it's a pretty short manual. Pretty simple, how to fill, all that good stuff. You can pause here if you want to read more, but there you go. All right, moving on to the tank itself. This is kind of the big thing. Looks-wise, visually, it looks really nice. But again, functionally, it just feels a bit mixed up. And I'll show you when I get into the actual, or under the hood of this thing to show you what I mean by that. But let's start with a drip tip. Like I said, 510 drip tip, really nice. A little bit shallow for some drip tips, but most of them will fit in there, no problem. Top fill is very simple. Just unscrew this, and there's your top fill slots. Nice big holes. You can get any size bottle in there, no problem, and it's not an issue. Let's screw that back on, and let's move down the tank a little bit. So going down the tank, you can also see down here, you can see these little holes right there. That's actually your juice control valve. So what you're going to do for that is just twist it, and hopefully I can get that twisted. There we go. So you can see how it's twisting right now. It's open, and then we just twist it even further. It's closed. Go all the way around, and you can see it opens up again right about there. So it's now open again. You can kind of see in there. It's hard to show on camera because it's not really focusing too well, but let me see if I can get a closer look at that. And it just kind of turns back until you get to the next juice control opening, I guess. Moving on from here, you have the airflow. Like I said, this isn't a ton of airflow. It looks bigger than what it actually feels like. And I feel like it's a little bit tighter, which is nice. It adds to that flavor. If you want a flavor chaser, this is a RTA to consider. But before we consider it too much, first of all, let's close off the juice valve. And just make sure it's closed. Nope, still open. There we go. Now it's closed. All right. So close off the juice valve, and let's just take it apart from the bottom down. First of all, you do have an adjustable 510 pin. A little bit nice. I still wouldn't use this on a hybrid, guys. I don't like recommending anything on hybrids, though, so that's just me. We can see in here, if we tilt it upside down, if that juice flow control valve is closed, which I'm not sure it is, but it shouldn't leak on you guys. So as you can see, nothing's leaking out right now. Maybe a drop. I don't know if that was from the cotton though. But yeah, it doesn't leak very well. So, and that's a good thing. It doesn't leak when you're changing your cotton out or your coil out. So you can have a full tank of juice in here and not worry about leaking. Now, moving on to the actual deck itself. This is what I meant. You can see here I have a build in here. This is actually a really bad build, guys. There's way too much cotton. So a little tip, use a lot less cotton, especially in an RTA. The biggest thing I can say is less is more when it comes to cotton in an RTA, especially with these kind of wicking holes down here, if you can see those. And you have 2 of those on there, and that's kind of where you're looking at. Now again, you can see here there's only 2 wicking holes, but they still haven't decided if they're going to make it a dual or a single coil RTA. And that's what bugs me. The wicking hole suggests it's a single, but then again, you see these post holes here, and it's set up for a dual RTA. But obviously with these posts on the end, there's no way you're going to get that setup in a dual style for anything that's even a remotely large build. This is actually 22 gauge Canthal. Actually, no, it's not. Sorry, this is a twisted build that was sent to me, actually. Not for review, just by a subscriber of mine. Nigel, if you're watching this, big shout out to you. These are the twisted coils you gave me to try out. Or the braided ones, I can't remember. But there's a close-up of those coils. Really nice coils, by the way. So shout out to Nigel for hooking me up with those. But anyways, again, going back to it, you're not going to get much complex builds in here. And, you know, again, it doesn't feel completed. I would have liked to have seen bigger post holes and only 2 of them. That's my only thing. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised, and this is going to sound a little bit harsh, but I wouldn't be surprised if they use like an existing post from some of their other RTAs or RDAs just to save on cost in this. And again, it's $30, which I didn't mention before, but I will mention the up top section later on as well, but just in case you skip through this. But again, the biggest thing is it's $30, so yeah, they're going to save costs any way they can to keep it as affordable for you guys as they can. And I think that all they did here was reuse the posts from previous RTAs or RDAs that they've used in the past, and that's just how they saved on money. Other than that, I mean, that's pretty much the gist of what it looks like up close. Again, hopefully you guys can see what I've talked about being mixed up a little bit. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Is it okay that they save a little bit of money by maybe reusing those? And I don't know if they did or not, by the way. I can't confirm that. It's just a sneaking suspicion. That's how they kept the cost down so low. But anyways, that's going to do it for the RTA section and the up close section. Let's go back up top, talk about my final thoughts on this, and we'll talk about the price point again just really quickly. All right, so we're back up top with the Merlin RTA by Augvape. Let's talk final thoughts and price point. The price point in this is right around $30 US. That's on eCiggity. If you guys want to go there, you're welcome to. I'm not going to have a link below or any of that stuff. If you want to go there, you guys know where eCiggity is, or you should. It's spelled the way it sounds, I guess. But anyways, $30 US on eCiggity. That's the first site that came up when I Googled it. If you want to shop around, you're more than welcome to. But that $30 price point is pretty much going to be right around the average. Now, getting on to whether or not I recommend this thing and how my thoughts are, and if I don't recommend it or if I do recommend it, who do I recommend it to? First, let's start with my thoughts. Would I go out and buy another one of these? Honestly, I wouldn't. I hate to say it. I love Augvape. I think their products are awesome, but I just feel like this one's just too mixed up right now, and I really can't decide if it's a single coil build or if it's a dual coil build or if it's kind of both or neither. It's just all in between. It's all mixed up. That's kind of where I stand on it. I know it sounds harsh. I'm not trying to sound harsh, but I feel like it could have been improved a little bit more with just a bigger focus on what it wanted to be. Now, that being said, who do I recommend this to? I think if you're comfortable building around the 50 to 60 range as far as wattage goes, that's your comfortable vaping style, and you like building very simple builds, say a 6 or 7 wrap 24 gauge kind of thing in that range, I think you're going to like this. I do. It's easy to wick. The flavor on this, because that tighter airflow, is fantastic. But again, it's just, for me, it's not for me. It's too low wattage, and I couldn't figure out how to build on it. And I really wish I could have built a little bit lower on it with some more complex builds. But the post holes just weren't working for me, and they weren't cooperating. So that's where I stand on it. So if you are looking for something simple and you like vaping in that 50 to 60 watt range, definitely maybe check this out. See if you're interested in it. Hopefully this review has helped you make a decision based on your preferences. That's always my goal. My goal is never to persuade you based on my opinions or anything, because we all have different vaping styles, and what I may love, you may hate, and vice versa. What you may hate, I may love. And wait, I said that twice, didn't I? what you may love, I may hate, and it's all up to you guys, right? So what I try and do, obviously, in these reviews is try and give you as much information as possible to make your decision a lot easier on what you want to do with the product I'm reviewing. Now, of course, with that being said, I think that's pretty much all I want to talk about. Hopefully it's not too long of a review, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that and were able to make a decision off it. But that's going to do it for today's review. So thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, YouTube, happy vaping.